Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast. My name is Elizabeth Savillon, and thank you for joining me on another episode. Here we talk about all things community, embracing our story, and our healing journey. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. All of that helps us to grow. And for this month, a free gift to me is leaving a review because it is my birthday and we are trying to get to grow our community and honestly bring more awareness to the topics that we have on the podcast. And that is a awesome way to support the show. I am also here at Hi Hello Labs in downtown Orlando, and I am excited to be on a virtual call today because I have some special guests that I love very much that have actually been on the show. I would say one of them has been a regular, the other one has been on here before one time, but I would say they know me the most. They know the good and the bad. And this is going to be a girl chat / real talk today with my sisters. So joining me virtually, hi, Steph and Kat.
Hi.
How are you guys feeling?
Thank
Welcome.
you so much for the invite.
Yes. It's a pleasure to be here with you, finally.
I know. It was a long time coming. And I know that, Steph, you've been on with June, and I'll put the episodes in the show notes. And Kat, you went like MIA for like 3 years, but you're back. Lisa.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
She's been busy.
A lot
Let's talk about it. I literally listened to the episode of us in 2021. And we were talking about single, dating, married. So we talked about our perspectives of relationships when it came to where we were at in the seasons of life. So can we just share, I know, Steph, you're my older sister, Kat, younger sister, in case there's new people here. What has happened since then? What is going on with your guys' life?
Do I go first?
Okay. Yeah, you can go first.
Well, since then, I got engaged and then married.
Yes.
And moved out. Now I live with a man, my husband. And yeah, that's been a big transition. Also was working full-time with our family business. Now I'm working part-time with my family business, part-time working at a church. So also career-wise I have done a transition as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of growing up and a lot of figuring out myself too.
Yeah, that's like your early 20s, like you're adjusting, adapting. And when people ask me, they're like, Kat is like so young, but at the same time, like she's so mature. I'm like, yes, because she's married. She has like her things going for her. And I'm just so proud of all the growth that you've done like in the past few years. On Instagram, you guys can check the exclusive People magazine wedding of Kat.
Magazine. That's crazy.
No, it was beautiful.
So beautiful though.
It was stunning.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And during that process, Kat, side note, how do you feel like, was that very stressful? Was that not?
The engagement process?
Yeah.
Or the wedding?
The wedding?
I think so, but I also leaned a lot on you guys. I know you guys definitely helped a lot, and Steph, like she already, got married, had a wedding, all that stuff. So I felt like using Steph's advice, the things that mattered, the things that didn't, and also Liz, helping me organize, do stuff for the bridesmaids and all this stuff. Like, you guys were a great help. So I really appreciate you guys for that season and having like a veteran before me, like helping me, guiding me, and also just like my sister Liz that like supported and everything. So yes, it was stressful. Yes, I had my highs and lows, but also like I was well supported with a lot of people that cared about me and like Daniel. So yeah, that was crazy. Yeah. But we did it. It's over.
You're like one and done. The reality, just side note, seeing you guys get married makes me want to just elope, to be honest. Love it for y'all. Love it for y'all. But I do sometimes feel like, oh my God, the stress of it. Because I was telling Mom, I'm like, I feel like I'm either going to have $100,000 wedding or I'm going to elope. Like, that's kind of my extremes at this point. Because y'all say that I'm like bougie. So,
and we saw like I spent more than Steph did. So at this rate, you're gonna spend more than what we did.
More.
So way more. So it's like might as well like buy a house or I don't know, do something else.
Exactly. So. It's real. And
no,
Steph,
I mean, I think celebrations are important. It really just depends on what you value the most.
Yeah.
And one thing that I know we talked about a lot was like, yes, you plan for your day, but also plan for your marriage. So like the day after, is also a little more important than just the day, So yeah, so I know we talked through that too, but hey, either way.
Yeah.
As long as you got the right one. Eloping, you're spending $100K.
Right. Hopefully
you'll
one
still
and
have
done.
fun, yeah.
For sure. And Steph, what has happened since the last time? I know you came on with your husband, June, which is my brother-in-law.
Yeah, so since the last time we talked, I have a toddler. She's 2.5. Rain is growing up so fast. We just started talking about her 3rd birthday.
Oh my gosh.
At the end of this year, so it's just crazy. Time is really flying by. Within the last few months, we have kind of established ourselves a little bit more. So we bought our first home, which is great. I actually am back in school, so finishing the bachelor's program also in December. Starting some other applications to continue my education. Further along that, working on certifications, working with She Cultivates. Working at our church, or really volunteering at our church. It's just been a lot of that over the last few years, more this year than anything. But yeah, just back in Orlando, kind of just establishing our roots, and navigating motherhood. And
you're killing it,
mom and student and sister and daughter and all of the hats that we all have to wear, So, yeah.
I would say Steph is like the super high achieving. Like if you want to know how you're raised, Steph is like the perfect example of the overachiever. She like does all this stuff. She's been working since she was like 15. So I really admire you, Steph. That's one thing.
Thank you.
We're like, I don't know how you do it, but thank you for giving us Rain, because she's like the best thing ever. And
I know.
We just love her so much.
I thank the Lord for her all the time. And even June, I was like, thank you for the greatest gift.
I know.
Literally.
It's, oh my gosh. I love it. It's crazy how she just changed our lives. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's amazing. And like you learn so much about yourself through raising her. And even like you guys help me like take care of her all the time, and like raising her, you learn things about yourself, you heal things in yourself. And that has been a beautiful and painful journey all at the same time.
Because it comes up stuff about you. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into like the topic of today's episode, I wanted to do a little like flash round of some questions of us, our sisterhood, our childhood, because I feel like a really big part of who we are is because of how we were raised. But I don't think I've ever talked about like the deepness of like how we were raised and like how we all are different, but like because of what we went through, like that has shaped a huge part. So let's start off light. Okay, so what childhood memory do you guys think about often? Like, what is a memory that you think?
I love to travel today, like whenever obviously the funds are right and the time is right and you can get off work and stuff like that. But I love that. And I just remember how every New Year we would be at a different city celebrating New Year's. Or mom and dad would take us on these weekend trips, you know what I'm saying? To like, just do something different, see something different. So exploring and traveling, I think is just I have such fond memories of that. Because it would take us out of the routine. And even now, especially as a parent, I'm like, wow, the sacrifice to plan that for like 3 kids and their work schedules. And again, pay ranges were very different back then, right? So just how they were able to afford and just prioritize that for us, I'm like, oh, I just love that so much. So even now when we talk about doing like family trips or trips together, it just takes me back to those moments. And I'm like, I just love that so much.
Yeah. I remember when we went to, like, the 2 big memories is when we would go to Houston, because we lived in Oklahoma. And so we would go down to, like, Houston to Texas. And I remember when we went to Corpus Christi and we're like, oh, we're going to go to the beach. And then we went over there and it was like, what is this, honey? Like, this is fail. Not cute.
Yeah, no.
And I feel like, but those were like such good times at the time. We're like, wow, we're at the beach during spring break or during this. And then when we went to see snow in Atlanta, That was like our first, and I have the picture when we were on that rock. What was it when we went the
Stone Mountain.
Stone Mountain. Yeah, Stone Mountain. And I was holding Dad's hand, and I was like, I think I was like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I remember those two.
Aw, that's cute. I would say for me, I would say Sunday night Bible studies. Do you guys remember?
Those were
Throwback.
religious. Those were religious.
What did mom and dad call it?
Devocionales.
Yeah, devotional.
Yep.
Sunday
Devotional
devotionals. We
time.
couldn't miss it
Evil
every
time.
Sunday.
We could not
Up
miss
until
it.
No, it was mandatory.
weren't we like 20 years old? We still
Yeah, we
Yeah.
literally did it every Sunday.
Yes.
Like, I think that I do think about that. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, like, mom
I
and dad
know.
really made us get together. He would open up a book or the Bible or like something
Yeah.
that dad was reading, because dad would always be reading something like at the time. And he would just always like teach something. And then we would have prayer time, and then he would tell us to pray. Like, we would pass like who was praying every week. And yeah, that's such a ingrained memory in my head, and just like how much I valued, like, which not that I don't value it now, but like when I was little, like just us, like our unit together, like the 5 of us was just like everything to me. And like, because we were in Oklahoma by ourselves, like we didn't have family over there, you know, we didn't grow up with our cousins, we didn't grow up with like our aunts and uncles around, so it was just us. And like,
Yeah.
I'm like, dang, like I loved that time. Like I felt like I didn't think about anyone else but just our family. And like I would say when kids would ask me, who are your best friends, like my sisters, like my parents, like that was everything to me. So I do often think about those like memories, you know.
Yeah. I think it's worth it. Like, I think that now I see that that's something that, like, I want to instill in my family, like that tradition of, like, being together, like, having things, because it's, like, having moments together, you know, because I feel like that's how we were raised. And even though it wasn't, like, perfect all the time, but, like, they still tried to, like, get us together to, like, not fight. Like, if we fought, it would be like, all right, go hug each other. And we're, like, mad at each other. We're, like, fine.
Yeah, it wasn't true forgiveness or repentance.
A lot of that.
But at the end of the day, I think it instilled really good values. I think
Yeah.
that we all care about. Like,
Yeah.
I think the 3 of us are one of our love languages is quality time. And we really feel loved and valued when we do spend that time together. And even more as kids, like, it was awesome.
It was just us
Yeah.
and stuff. So even though that was good, what was something that you guys would change about our childhood?
I think for me, it was the amount of times that we moved.
Yeah. So we moved how many times?
Well, like states 3 times. 3.
Yeah, 3 different states.
But
For
cities
me-
a bunch of times.
Yeah, for me
In
it
the
was
state.
4 because I also lived in Honduras.
Yeah, I lived in Honduras.
Okay.
So 4, essentially 2 countries, 4 areas, etc. I went to 16 different schools, and that was a lot.
I went to
So-
3 in 9th grade. I went to 3 different schools.
Mm-hmm. So if you count from like, you know, I know people who were in the schools, you know, from kindergarten to 5th grade, you know, and for us, it would be like every year or every semester or between the year, you know, we would move, and that was just a lot. I mean, my adaptability now is like unmatched. Like you got nothing on me.
Put me
You know what I'm saying? Put me anywhere. I'm a chameleon, right? But I think that was very difficult growing up, because you had to learn culture, you had to learn language, you had to learn people, you were always a new person. So obviously empathy for new people, unmatched, right? Because I get that, but that's one thing that I would I would change.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I regret, because obviously it made us who we are.
Yeah.
Part of our story, but maybe 8 times instead of 6.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe
just
like
cut it in
4.
half at least.
I know. I think
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to me though. Like now, like we've lived in Orlando the most we've ever anywhere. It's been like since 2010. So that's 14 years. This is the longest place that we have lived. So when people ask me like, would you move? I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, like I'm young, why not? But then there's the other part that's like, it feels good to have a place that's like home, you know, and that feels like familiar. Like you can build friendships that you've known for so long, or you like know where to go. Like, you know, you can explore that versus having to always be the new person or feeling out of place. And that's why we were so close growing up, is because we felt like we didn't have that like besties, or like we didn't have that. And so we only had each other, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that a
Yeah,
part
you were
of
in a place. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, and then that's a part of it. It's like you're always just trying to figure out the new place that you're in. And also you're very young. Like we were between the ages of like what, 5, like elementary to through high school age. So it's like those are formative years too. So it was like you didn't even know how to process those emotions that came with moving around and having to leave people and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, I don't know. I think it's not necessarily family wise, but I feel like just me, like as a person, like I feel like I grew up being like the shy one and the one that was very reserved into herself. And I just wish that I didn't like lean into those characteristics. Cause I felt like it made it harder for me growing up. Cause then I had that box in my head. I'm like, well, I'm the quiet one and I'm the one that's shy and I'm the one that is really reserved. And I felt like growing up, like it did more harm to me than it helped me, you know? So I would say like it wasn't necessarily a family thing, but just even how I saw myself, you know, just being like, no, like I'm shy, but it doesn't matter. Like I can still go up to kids, I can still talk to people, like even if I'm more reserved, or I can do it when I feel comfortable, and this is how I feel comfortable, or what, you know, like just learning ways to move out of that. I felt like, which isn't, yeah, it's not necessarily like a family thing, just more like on myself. As I grow up and as I look back, I'm like, dang, like so many years I had a perception of myself that wasn't true, you know? And I just felt like I wish I got over that quicker, you know,
But I
like
don't
growing
think you
up.
were taught that though. Like I don't think that like that was something that, because we had to be adaptable, like sometimes like people just navigate things differently, but you were never taught to be like, hey, like you're the new person, so like this is how you get out of your shell. Like this is what you
Yeah.
should do. Like kind of like nurturing that in us, you know, where it's like you kind of had to figure it out. Like I feel like I figured it out, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like just thrown into that. And like that's when people would compare us, quote unquote, of like our personalities, like, oh, Liz is so out there and you are. It's just because that's my personality, but it wasn't that you didn't have it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think it's like you were labeled shy, and
mm-hmm.
that's a label, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you aren't shy. You know, you're observant. You're more
Yeah.
reserved. You know what I mean? You're more cautious, and so you study your environment more, and yeah. So I hear you, because I am naturally more introverted. That's just personality, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm shy. Like I can have a conversation with anybody, you know? So I can understand how that constant label, you know what I mean? Like you can take it as like, oh, this is who I am, and then
Yeah,
like
for
live by
sure.
that. And then later be like, actually no. I'm
Yeah,
not like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Or there's ways to work around it, or like tools that I have to pull out, you know? So it's like if maybe I had like 30 minutes of energy where I could talk to people, like using my energy in a good place, in a good time, you know, instead of like trying to like make up for certain characteristics. You know what I mean? So I felt like that, like thinking now about childhood, I was like, dang, like I wish I would have not held on to that label, you know, within
Yeah,
myself.
that's real. I feel like for things that I wish like would change, it would be more of like that we, and again, like people do as good as that they know, but it's like that, like kind of like teaching, like learning how to talk through things, learning how to handle our emotions, like learning, because I feel like it was just so much change all the time that it was like you just had to like adapt, like you just had to figure it out, or like it was like survival, you know what I mean? So I feel like a part of that as I got older, I'm like, dang, like I feel like you just kind of like kids take on a lot of stuff, but like they don't know is they're not taught how to manage it. You know what I mean? So it's like learning how to like, you know, be out there. And mom and dad did amazing, like in the way that they like involve, like they would, when we were somewhere for like a longer time, like a year, they would be like, okay, get into sports, get into things, like, you know,
Yeah.
So it's not that they didn't, you know, and I feel like in high school, that's where we all kind of like started getting more involved in certain things. At least like me and Kat. So it was, those things were helpful, you know. So going into the next question of what do we admire about each other the most? And so I wanted to start with, actually, with Kat, with what you said. I actually admire how much discernment you have of things. And I actually admire like how you're so like, you pick up on people and you just like know how to like be intentional, you know what I mean? So you don't have to talk to a million people. You can talk to like one or two, and you're so like genuine about it and you care and you are there, you know, you show up in that, you know. So I admire that about you. And Steph, I admire your wisdom and just your care and your tenderness too. Like I feel like you're very someone that like is so nurturing since we were little. Like you were a big part of who raised us, because when mom and dad were not work when they were working. So like I admire just how much you've always put in that role, you know, of like really nurturing and caring and like putting us before you sometimes, and like,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like, dang, like you've been mothering for for like for your
Forever.
whole life.
Wild.
Like
Your
the
back
oldest.
must hurt because you've been carrying.
Yes. So I love you guys.
Love
Yeah.
you too. I appreciate that. And I think the things that I love about both of you guys, oh my god, I just love you guys so much. Like
You're
I
on
think-
camera.
I know I'm not gonna cry. Well, who cares? If I cry, I cry. But I think one of the things that I love about you, Liz, is honestly your ambition to be better than what you were taught. I think you constantly challenge yourself, and you are very introspective to like look within and say, this I will keep, this I will not. And I know you've done a lot of work. Your followers know, you know, those that don't, start from episode 1, you know, but I love that about you, that when you and I have conversations, you make me think of things and I'm like, oh, how did that affect me? And how I've never thought about that, or I've never thought about it that way. So what you do with reading, what you do with, you know, just, you know, your platform, what you do personally, and the things that you look within. Oh my gosh, I just love that so much about you. And then, oh Kat, I just love you so much. I love how you genuinely care for people. Like not just the hey, how you doing, like bypassing conversations, but like the depthness of relationships. And I admire how deep you form those relationships with people. I think you both do this amazingly, but one of the things that I love about you, Kat, is that, and one of the things that I admire about you is like you truly care about people. Like you have friends who you met in middle school, you know, and faith is an important part of our lives, and like how you've journeyed with them through their walk to then come to know Jesus. Like those things like that, like I absolutely admire about you. Love about you.
So sweet. Thank you guys.
Of course.
Love y'all. I would say for you guys, I felt like when I think of you guys, I do think of like the best parts of mom and dad, if that makes sense. Like I think for like one of the best sides of dad is that he has always wanted to help people, like always. He always wanted to make a workshop for marriages. He always wanted to serve in church. He always wanted to help others. And I think like we have those qualities within ourselves. And like Lizzie, seeing your platform, like it's like you were able to get healed, and then you made a platform because you wanted everyone else to be healed and everyone else to be good. And I felt like I see that, and it just like encourages me, like that my growth isn't just for me, you know, like it really is to help other people. And I think like that's just a huge characteristic of who you are, and like the confidence you carry. And then I would say like with Steph, like something you carry from mom is like her confidence. Like I felt like you were such a strong woman, and like you don't care what comes your way, like you're gonna like body it, you're gonna take it. And it's just kind of like that's like mom, like it's who she is, and like her confidence and her strength. And I think that's like something that you carry so easy. And I'm just like, how can like both of you guys like walk into a room and be like the most confident? And I genuinely feel like that's who you guys are and who like I try to be when I come into a room. It's like I want to channel that, like the strong woman, the person that knows who she is, the person that's just like gonna handle anything that comes her way. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's you guys to me, you know.
Thank you. Aw. Well,
Thank
you are
you.
confident, girl. And I
You
feel like part of
are.
that, you are confident. But I feel like those are the things that, like, we, I guess, learned and we take, like, we take the good and the bad from things that shaped us, but it's like they've made us who we are, So
Yeah.
I feel like that adaptability, that, like, having to figure it out, having to, like, and seeing mom and dad, even, like, they were always into, like, personal growth, like, how to read something, how to, like, get better at something. So then we picked that up too in the work ethic, because I always say this: mom never told us about getting a man. She never taught us how to get a man. She taught us how to
She
get
never
your
told
get
us.
your zoom in and get your
Mm-hmm.
degree
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
successful financially.
Successful.
Like, that's
Yeah.
what she taught us, like, to work hard. So she's like, you figure out that stuff and don't depend on anybody else. That's kind of the mentality that she taught us. So yeah, that's like what we've embodied, good and bad. So, like, how has that shaped, like, what were kind of like areas that you remember that, like, were things that shaped who you are today from our childhood? Like, what were certain things that you feel like were good or bad that, like, made you who you are today?
I think for me, one, and I think you touched on it a little bit, is I had to grow up really fast. So I will use the term, but I don't want it to be defined to the full essence of the word, but I was parentified, right? So I was told essentially, like, you're responsible for your sister's well being. And, at the age of 10, that is a huge responsibility, you know? So I think those things shaped me significantly. Um, Ensuring that I was there for you guys and what I knew as a kid to be there for you guys, right? And to be this role model. And then it was difficult to see where my help would come from, you know? Um, so those were some of the challenges that I had to encounter, that I had to work through. Um, and then I think the second part, which is kind of what you mentioned, Liz, which was, you do everything you can to be successful. Successful is depending on what you define that as, right? Whether it's financial stability, whether it's, degrees or, letters after your name, like whatever the case may be. But when I entered marriage and when I entered motherhood, because all I was taught is how to be successful professionally, it's like, how am I then successful in my marriage as a wife? How am I then successful as a mother now in this role, right? So having to learn things that weren't just supernatural, that, I mean, things that you pick up a lot as kids. So I'm not saying like you were never taught to be a wife, but never had the conversation of like, this is what you may encounter now as you're married. So doing a lot of that discovery myself, marriage books, mentors, etc. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. With that success part. That's so true. Like success really is up to the person, like so yeah, that's really good. I would say like how I brought up dad and like how he always wanted to serve people. I think that genuinely has always been something that I still carry to like with myself and like how I can serve others, and whether that be in a church setting of like, bringing people to Christ, or whether that be like people that I've encountered when I was little and like now I'm still carrying them through life. Like I think that's something genuinely that has stuck with me, and that I think about like how he just was always the one like, Kat, record this video for me, edit it for me, I want to make a course. Like he would always just want to be making some kind of course to help people. And I just feel like that's just so selfless, that he didn't want his knowledge to like limit or end with him. And so I think that about myself too, like how can what's going on with me like benefit someone else and help someone else. So
yeah, because you learn those things and you kind of see like, wow, it's not about me. Like how you said, like seeing how like you can help other people, be there for other people, but at the same time it's like you learning, because I feel like half of who I am today, there was a lot of unlearning that I had to do in my 20s of like things that were maybe taught that were not correct, that were just out of what was at the moment, and so it's like learning those things within ourselves, like, oh wow, like this is where I got that mindset, or like this is what I thought was supposed to be. I feel like within us, and like I've kind of also changed the way of like maybe expectations of like, okay, marriage, what timeline you should have. Like you guys both got married at 24. Which is funny, right? Like you guys both at the same year, and I'm turning 29, literally. And that was always something that I felt like certain cultural pressures or certain things, and it's just trying to like change that to be like, that's not what success looks like. Like success is, yes, I want a family one day, but it's like if I don't get it by this, that doesn't mean that I didn't have that, because I'm achieving in other areas,
Oh yeah.
So I feel like for me it was a little different in that way. Yeah. So more on like a lighter note, like what is something funny that you feel like, or a good moment that you guys remember from like growing up, or like who we were?
our music videos.
Yes. Okay, were you really a millennial? Or if you don't have
Hold on, but we had to
videos of
explain
yourself?
our roles in these music videos.
Yes.
What was that?
What were the roles?
So I was always behind the camera, and I was directing.
Creative director.
Creative
director before creative director was a name.
Was a thing. Yes,
was a thing. Yes. And I would get lighting.
Yeah.
I would even like turn off the lights and just put like a focus light, which would be a lamp at this point.
Yeah.
And I would tell you what to do. Like, you're going to walk over here, you're going to turn around the mirror, like we're going to do the whole thing.
I know.
So yeah.
I know. We were the
and
main.
then Lizzie would fight
for who gets the spotlight.
who was the spotlight.
Who was the star?
Me and Kat would fight so much growing up because I feel like she'd always be like, "You're always trying to be in front of the camera, like you're."
No, I remember there's like a home video of like we have like a microphone and we're like going back and forth of like who's trying to like detail it. And I think we saw it a few years ago. It was like Christmas and we were watching like home videos. And I was like, what the heck? Like, why was I like that?
I know.
But
there's that back. Because growing up, it was that. Like there was a lot of cattiness. Me and Steph would get into it, like punching, grabbing. Choking.
Yeah, it was rough.
For like the phone.
It was rough. The phone. I mean, it would be... but as a parent, who lets two preteens share a phone? That's not gonna happen.
I mean,
that cannot happen.
It's gonna end bad.
Yeah, and then Kat is over there like in her own world.
I know.
Yeah,
I was too little to understand what was happening. So.
Yeah. No, but like, and then I feel like me and Kat would fight again, like personality, things like that. And so we've evolved over time. So how has our relationship changed over the years? Because I think that a lot of people listening, maybe they're like, okay, like I don't have a close relationship with my siblings, or that has been a little hard because of our upbringing. A lot of the time, like sometimes, like when you're growing up, you see each other all the time, like you're kind of forced to be friends, to be honest. But then as you get older, to be honest, and I know people that they're like, I would never be my sister's friend if I saw her on the street. Like if we weren't like related, I wouldn't, So how does that look like? Because I know I've talked to you guys before about like having to like get to learn you guys who you are today, from like who you are, what do you like, interest, and investing that time as a sister today versus those memories or those issues that we had growing up. So, like we're real on the podcast, right? So like, I know that there was a lot of comparison when we grew up, of like who did what, or like, certain kind of like called out on certain areas or gifts that we had, and certain fights of like maybe some hurt that like, I was mean to someone and they were mean to me and we never worked through that. So then it's like, it creates this like bitterness or anger, within the person, that as you get older, you're like, I'm not seeing you for who you are today. I'm seeing you for how you were when we were 10 years old.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, can you guys share a little perspective on your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think growing up, like you mentioned, there was comparison. There was we all had we all handled all of those changes differently. And for me specifically, like I diverted or, kind of shifted to using medication to soothe my pain, and there was a lot of like, oh, well, why aren't you like Elizabeth, or this and that. And as a kid, I am thinking that I need to blame you for this. But in essence, like, it was never your fault. You know what I'm saying? So, as an adult, when I started therapy and started going through my own healing journey, I was like, no, she was never at fault for that. She didn't pin me against her. You know what I'm saying? Like, other people did. And they were unhealthy, and that's why they did that. They couldn't look at themselves and what they contributed to the environment that produced this, right? But yet they were looking for someone to blame, you know what I mean? And they couldn't take ownership themselves. So I think not everyone has the opportunity to look at those things and see that it wasn't the person that intentionally tried to hurt you. It was the environments around you that created this kind of, culture where it's like, oh, this person's better than that person, and you should be like this person, and you should be like that. um and yeah, so I think that was one of the things.
Yeah. Because even though you say that you had that pressure of comparison to me, I felt like because you were like, you had struggling, like you were struggling in certain areas that like they like, I wanted to make it easier for mom and dad. And then I felt like I had to be perfect. So it's like nobody told me to be perfect, but I felt like I had to perform then to make sure that like I had no issues. Like they had no problem with me ever. And it's like that's not realistic either. And it's like, and again, it's not personal to you, it was more of like just the pressure that you feel because you weren't taught certain things. And I feel like as adults we've like talked through like how we were. I remember I asked you stuff of like what really happened, between the ages of 13 and 15, like from your perspective, like what was going on. And I remember like we would literally bawl, like crying, like thinking back to like those moments, of like, wow, like that, I didn't know that you went through that. Or like, wow, like at that age I didn't understand um certain areas, of why you were acting a certain way. And then I feel like as an adult being able to be like, oh, like that's really what happened. Like I was told this narrative which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't true.
Yeah. Yeah, or it was just part of the story because we were still so little and we couldn't understand. We couldn't comprehend. And there wasn't that liberty to share how you truly felt. So you had to conform, but yet inside it was everything but. You know what I'm saying? Um so yeah. How was it for you, Kat?
Um, I think like since obviously like for those that don't know, I'm 7 years younger than Steph, and then I'm 4 years younger than Lizzie. So I felt like I was always in a completely different stage. Like I was still a little kid when Lizzie was entering like middle school or high school, and same Steph was in her own thing. So I felt like my transition between our relationship was hardest to me when I was around 15, because then Steph, you were in your like early like 20s, Lizzie, you're like already graduating high school and stuff. So I feel like that stage was the hardest for me because I was holding on to how we were as a kid. Like I was the one that would always tag along with you guys, but then now you guys are making your life, you guys have your own friends, your own stuff, and I'm like, wait, like what about me? Like. So I felt like that was a hard stage for me to kind of detach myself and be like, oh, like they're grown up, like they're doing their life, and like I kind of have to find my own way in the world, honestly. So I felt like for me that was a hard transition, going into high school when you guys were already much older and like living your lives, and then growing up, and then I kind of like detached myself, but then now I'm like an adult, and then it's like, okay, how can like we have an adult relationship now, not like a childhood like child sibling relationship. So I feel like that's what we've been trying to discover these past, like in my 20s now, like I'm 24 now, so I feel like these past like 4 or 5 years, like it's been more of that, like how can we figure out how to have like a mature sibling relationship where you guys are actually my friends, like you're not my mom anymore, you're not like my sister trying to like get me in trouble in any way. It's more like you guys are genuinely my sisters, and like how can we have a friendship? So I felt like these past few years, and like now that I got married and stuff, it has been that transition of like, oh, she's not a little sister cat anymore. Like she's grown and has her own life and her own voice and her own opinions, which I felt like has been a hard transition, I would say, for me, you know?
Yeah. I think during your wedding season, that's where it was like the boundaries, or like, you were being more vocal, and it was like, oh, dang, like she's growing up. Like she knows what
Yeah.
she wants. She's like,
I know, and I
absolutely
was
not.
named, and I remember dad, like in the wedding process, he was like, "You're," what did he say? Like, "You're so," oh my God, what did he say? He said like, "You're so like controlling," or he said something like that. Like basically because I wasn't like doing like my normal role as a little sister, that's
Yeah.
quiet and going with everything. Or yeah, complicated. He said, "You're so complicated." And I was like, me? Like, because the first time I'm like speaking up for myself and
Yeah.
like saying what I want and stuff. Like, so it's like, yeah, like that growing up stage was definitely like, oh, she's not little sister no more. Like, like I have my own voice. So
Yeah. And I
it
think
was
that
challenging.
those things that happen like that, they can cause like I'm gonna be real, like me and Kat got in a fight like during
I know.
her engagement, like screaming.
But
Like,
sometimes you have to just let it out.
yeah.
It doesn't always need to be just a
Yeah.
sit down. Sometimes it just need to come out raw and real. And I felt like after that conversation, like I felt better. I don't know about you.
I mean, I low-key was like, "Oh my god, I think I'm losing my sister." Like, what is happening? And Steph is over there in the middle. She's like, "What? Like, what is happening?"
Yeah.
I don't think I was
But that's what I'm
there.
saying.
I
Like
came
those things will
home.
happen in adulthood. Like things will happen. Like, maybe like you used to do, and even for example, like you guys being married, like there's certain boundaries that you guys have now that are different when we were all together, like living just at home, us three. It's like now it's like, okay, now you have, how do you want, even for parenting? I remember telling Steph like so many times, I told her like, Steph, how do you
Yeah.
want me to handle with Rain? Like, let me know how
Yeah.
you do it. Don't expect me to know how you want me to do it, because I don't ever want to cause an issue with you. I don't want you to like never to be able to see Rain because I did something. Like if I do something, let me know. Like tell me if I did something bad, or like what you don't want me to do. Like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that, which I feel like you're never taught of, like, oh dang, like as an adult, like those are the things that you should do to make sure that your
Yeah.
relationship is good.
Yeah, always be communicating, and like I feel like, yeah, like growing up it's kind of like with our other friendships and stuff, like I've realized I have to like confront situations and like be vocal and all that, but it's like with siblings sometimes you like neglect that and you're like, "Oh, we'll just get over it." But no, it's the same thing. Like it's how you nurture a friendship is how you nurture like your friendship with your siblings. It's the same way. Like I have to be able to call you and be like, "Hey, this bothered me," or like, "What is about this? Like, can you help me with," like, I don't want to assume, like with my sibling, just how I don't want to assume in a friendship. So it's kind of like translating those things over. And I feel like with a sibling relationship, you just feel like, like it'll just kind of blow over, when it's like, no, like I want to be good siblings for the rest of my life. So it's like, how can we like take care of that relationship?
Yeah. Yeah. So like what
Yeah.
we've cultivated today is because of those hard conversations. Like we've had falling outs, we've had hard conversations. And I feel like how I see you guys today is more of like deeper friendships and closeness. Like I shared about this on the podcast, like during when I shared like my child abuse story. Like that was so hard. But a huge
Mm-hmm.
part of that was like the support you guys had, and like you guys had my back, and you were like, okay, let's talk through, like let's hear everybody's perspective, like how has this affected everybody. And uncomfortable things that happened during that time, like with external family members, that it was like, okay, but like we're gonna work through this, this is uncomfortable, like this is how we're gonna work through it. So I feel like those are situations that come up, like a death of a family member, issues with family members, health issues with family members, like stuff that sometimes you have to come as a family very close. But then also like you guys are adults now, so it's like how are you going to make sure that you don't blow up the relationship, you know, because you value that relationship, at least like we do, like we want to have a healthy family dynamic. And that's always what we say too, is like, you know, maybe we didn't do we didn't have all the tools growing up, you know, and we went through some stuff, but now we're healing and working on ourselves to be a better family unit for like our future generations, you know. So for Rain, like Rain is gonna have a much healthier version of us, you know, to raise her, you know, in an environment for that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think to like our external family, that, and we were very aware of the relational challenges that they had, and there was always so much tension. There was the walking on eggshells. There was, you know what I'm saying, like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you ever because of A, B, and C. And it was nothing in my perspective that was so offensive that caught, you know what I mean, to for it to be that kind of like breaking of a relationship, you know, like it was more like disagreements that, oh, you should turn right instead of turning left, you know what I'm saying, like simple things like that to us. And I know not every family dynamic has that opportunity to mend those disagreements. And I think also the three of us have done some work to even leave conversations with, hey, I don't agree, but I respect your decision, you know? Instead of sometimes in relationships, it's like, if you don't agree with me, you don't like me or you don't love me. You know, it's like, no, the opposite can be true. That I maybe don't agree with your decision, but I still love you regardless. Like that's not going to change. And I know that those are sometimes difficult things to navigate in relationships, maybe even with siblings, because you're like, no, you shouldn't text this person back. Like, what are you doing? Like, stop the relationship. They're not good for you, but yet you continue, right? But I love you anyway. I'm not going to sever the relationship because of your actions. I care about you more than what you do. You know what I'm saying?
And about being right. Like you're not trying to like win.
Yes.
Like to be right. Like no,
right.
I mean it's like no, like I care about this relationship, so I'm gonna make sure to like be intentional about doing what I need to do and having those hard conversations because I want to keep it and not hurt it.
100%. It's like, was it more important for you to win the argument than win the relationship? You know? So to your point, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. We weren't raised with seeing a healthy dynamic. And again, we were kind of isolated from all our family growing up. So that's why when people are like, oh my God, like, you know, we're like that they grew up with their cousins and they grew up with a big family, like it was just us. And that led to good things of like our closeness, but then it also led to some codependency and some like kind of losing ourselves in that identity. And then having to feel like how Kat said, it's like, oh my God, now I actually have to like make my own friends, and like having external friends is a good thing. Like having healthy friendships is a good thing. Like, you know, because we weren't taught that. And like feeling safe with other people too, you know? So it was like, you know, you guys are always my ride or dies, of course, but I have cultivated other friendships outside of it. And it's healthy too, you know, to have other people, external people that are in the season that you're in, are understand in different ways, you know, and, you know, like, but you guys have helped me and taught me how you guys have taught me so much though, you know, on our sisterhood, you know, of our relationship. Yeah. So do you guys want to leave any last things before we wrap up for today's episode?
Last thing.
Yes, about like just sisterhood, things that like have shaped you for who you are, or just, you know, anything that you want to share.
I guess I would say, like, if we're on the topic of siblings, like, just get to know who your sibling is today, you know, like don't hold them to who they were growing up, and genuinely see them as like a friend, you know, someone that you can confide in and go to. And I feel like on your point of what you were saying of like feeling comfortable, like I still struggle with that, like feeling comfortable with people outside of my family, because I don't know, like it just was ingrained in my head that it was just us, you know? So I feel like that concept of like me being open is something I still am working toward and working on, but I think like yeah, like your siblings, if they are safe people and good people, like then there really are those ride or dies that are gonna be there through thick and thin, like in the best moments and in the worst moments of your life. So like, you know, just don't discard them, you know?
Yeah.
Like take care of them and love them and get to know who they are today, you know?
Yeah. I think, relationships are difficult, how we were all raised, even those that are listening, like you may hear us and be like, yeah, I could never, and I get you. I think every relationship you have to look at it from your context, but I do believe that when forgiveness and reconciliation can meet, nothing is impossible, so I do believe that. And every relationship takes two parties, it's not just Lizzie calling me or FaceTiming me to see how things are going. Like I have to initiate that back, and same with Kat. And I think that goes for all of us. It's like if you care about it, you have to nurture it. It won't happen anymore organically because you may not be under the same roof like we were for some time. And then there was moments where I felt like I was drifting away because life got in the way, marriage, things were happening, like you move, like there's so many different things, and it just takes some intentionality. And I think that that's important to cultivating friendship, especially even with siblings.
Yeah, you guys are my BFFs for life. You're like the sisters, the friendships that were made as buddies, And I think that like I am so grateful for what we've like built today. And like we've had those hard conversations of like, okay, intentional time. Like when am I going to see you this week? Like we have kind of a routine of like, okay, we're checking in, we're calling. And I also think rain, of course, also helped because, having an aunt, like you're like, I want to go see her. Like, love you, Steph. Love you, Steph, but let me see the baby. You're like, 100%. I want to go and hang out with her. I want, to talk to her. So it's like both, And so I'm just grateful for you guys. Thank you for, helping me become my best self, And I always say that, like, you guys have instilled so many great things that I learned so much from you, and I admire each of you guys in your own way. And I'm just so thankful for all your support too that you guys have done since the day one. Like Kat with this podcast, we were doing photo shoots in the living room when we started this
video. Go back to it. No, I'm just kidding. Don't go back.
Link it in the notes.
Absolutely
link it in the notes.
But like our branding and stuff with everything, and even through like just how I've evolved through my relationships, through a lot of other stuff. I know we can talk about a lot of different topics, but I'm just so grateful for you guys, and thank you guys for being on today.
Thank you. I love you so much.
I love you.
Super proud of what you're doing.
Thank you. I will put all your information down below. And also, if you want to connect, how Stephanie said that we have our She Cultivates community, and we have our upcoming events where you can see us there. Our September 21st event that we have, which is going to be an amazing event here in Orlando. And then we have a friendship social. Yes, we will all be there. So, and if you guys have any questions or anything, make sure to write us on social media. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.